Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be back at the NPU conference. I enjoyed last year's conference so much in Stavanger, which I finally learned how to pronounce by the end of the conference. Back from the future to the present, I have some thoughts and ideas to share with you on audience development strategies. I'm a researcher. I study audience behaviors and patterns of cultural participation in the United States. And I think a lot about audience development. And I work with philanthropic foundations, and I have a full-day workshop that I'm condensing into 30 minutes. So apologies if I go quickly, but I'm happy to speak with any of you afterwards about any of this. Let's go. I'd like to contextualize my remarks with just summarizing some market research about millennials. And millennials is sort of code for younger adults. I think we put a little too much emphasis on generations. You know, millennials are totally different than Gen X and Gen Z, and I don't think age is really the most important defining factor in driving patterns of arts participation. I think one's cultural background, one's upbringing, there's so many other factors that are important besides age, but we have our generations. So a little bit about research, a very high overview of strategies for building audiences. You know, we have such a decentralized field. You know, I like to say our field is like a huge corporation with 10,000 branch offices and no headquarters. So because we're so decentralized, we have all these arts organizations, many of you doing experiments on audience development, and no one is really keeping track of what's happening. So we'll try to collate some strategies. And then I'm going to go very deep into just one particular area of audience development strategy, which is experimentation with format, which I think is extremely promising as a strategy, and particularly the marriage of format and branding at the product level. So high overview, and then we'll go very deep into a particular practice. Over the last year, I've been working with a couple of philanthropic foundations. One of them is the Wallace Foundation, based in New York. They currently have a grant program supporting 25 organizations. They've each been granted $1 million to undertake an audience development experiment. You can imagine what you would do with $1 million to do an audience development experiment. And I've been facilitating cohort learning for this group of grantees, and the Wallace Foundation has commissioned enormous amounts of market research, millions of dollars of market research, many of these studies focusing on millennials. Now, I'm not at liberty to speak about the results, it's too early. But I thought I would bring you sort of just this highest overview of barriers. You know, why don't younger adults go out more often? You know, and I wish that we could just like do a poll in this room, you know, without showing you this, and I'm positive that you all would come to the same conclusion after millions of dollars of research, right? Cost, it's expensive. There's a real cost barrier, and it's not just the cost of the ticket, it's the cost of going out, and actually I would argue it's the opportunity cost of not staying home working for many people. Lack of, you know, can we do something about cost? Yes, we can lower prices. Lack of social context, I don't have anyone to go. You know, the sad truth about arts participation is there's millions of people sitting at home who would actually love to go to your programs, but will never in a million years get it together to call a friend, make arrangements, check tickets. But if someone calls them and says, "Oh, would you like to go?" said, "Oh, sure. I don't care how much it costs because I want to spend time with you." Lack of social context is a major barrier. I'm busy. That's not a barrier. That means to me that your programs are not relevant enough to make someone want to make time to attend them. I'm not familiar. I don't have a connection with your organization. I'm too busy. Again, it doesn't fit in my schedule, and I think this is one of the more challenging trends that Anne spoke about is people wanting to make little commitments and then wanting to be able to cancel at the last minute. Right? I'm always fascinated by people who leave performing arts programs at intermission because they can. It's like one of the only choices you get to make. And it's actually interesting. I'd love to do a study of people who leave at intermission. How many people why are they leaving? And my guess is because they've just had their fill. It's not because they're not enjoying it. They've had their fill. They're ready to go home. Okay, I don't like the type of performances' lack of relevance, again, and then logistical barriers. So, you all know these, but this is millions of dollars of research. Don't get me started. But really, what we have to look at barriers and think, what can we do to actually surmount them, okay? And this is not rocket science. Make programs more relevant. And this is perhaps the most difficult thing. Those of you who are in marketing know you may or may not have influence over programs. I'm certainly seeing more marketing people getting more involved in thinking about programming, which is terrifically exciting. We can offer more brand affiliation opportunities. We can do more to help people have more socially fulfilling experiences. Right? Attracting younger adults means they don't know a lot about our art forms, yet we keep selling them repertoire and artists who they don't know, and they might not be able to select. So if we offer more social opportunities, that will help. Obviously, we can reduce price points. What are some of the strategies for building demand that we're seeing? And this is the travesty, the tragedy of a decentralized system, is that no one is really keeping track. So we have arts organizations trying audience development projects that have already been tried in many cities in many countries around the world, and no one knows. So we suffer for lack of collating best practices, not even best, just good practices. What's working, what's not, who's trying different things. Experimentation with setting is such a big strategy right now. It's moving art to a different setting to attract a new generation of people. There's so much interesting work happening with settings. I've written a paper on that. You can find it on the Wolf Brown website, Venues and Settings and their effect on patterns of arts participation. Experimentation with format, I'll be speaking about in depth in just a minute. So much around audience engagement or sort of demystification, trying to educate audiences, make the art more accessible, workshops, discussions. I won't read all these, but all of these are bona fide strategies that you all perhaps are trying. They've been tried in many cities. Accessing demand across discipline, that's like museums who have dance companies perform in the museum, and they're trying to find, they're trying to access demand in a different art form. Orchestras doing jazz. There's a lot of multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary fertilization happening. Okay. So there's a day of material on each of these strategies, and we really need, I think, to be thinking at the strategy level. What's being tried? What has been, what is the evidence that these strategies are successful? Because there's so much under all of these strategies. Let's take a deep dive into experimentation with format. And this is one of my favorite favorite topics. And what's driving format diversification is fundamental shifts in public taste in art. It's the most difficult thing for all of us to understand is how are public tastes changing? Because we know they're changing. I mean, think about your own tastes, for example, in music, and how your tastes have changed in the last few years. People's tastes change, they evolve. It's a cultural phenomenon, it's unavoidable. Yet our organizations tend to produce the same programs. It's very difficult to adjust. So fragmentation of tastes, it means it's getting more and more difficult to serve everyone with the same programs. So we're on an inevitable slide towards product diversification because our population is diversifying and people's tastes are diversifying. The truth is that younger adults don't care so much about disciplinary boundaries. Meanwhile, we've built entire institutions based on disciplinary boundaries. And what does this mean? What does this mean for our organizations? So we're seeing there's a lot of forces pushing our field towards format diversification. Excuse me, we don't have a lot of time to go into all of this. But these are some of the formats I'm seeing. Orchestras, theaters, operas, ballets, museums. Introductory, educational, social, late night. I love the late night formats. Collage formats, interdisciplinary, and so forth. So just very briefly, I just want to give, the highest level overview. Some examples. New World Symphony in Miami has a format they call a mini concert. It's 3 30-minute concerts in one night, and they are ticketed separately. Tickets cost only $2.50. So the whole point is to build the database, is to get new people in. It's only 30 minutes, so if you don't like it, it's not long. And if you like it, you could stay for the next show and buy another $2.50 ticket. But this is specifically an introductory format. It's to introduce people to the orchestra. What are your introductory formats? What are your points of entry? Marketing points of entry and programmatic points of entry for attracting new and younger audiences. The Phoenix Symphony has a similar concert, except they do it at the beginning of their season, and they do it to kind of introduce their season. So they do 3 short concerts in one night, and they actually sell tickets in the lobby, and they turn it into a marketing event. The National Orchestra of Spain also has mini concerts. I read from their brochure, experience a new way to enjoy music during the weekend as a perfect finishing touch to an afternoon shopping. Choose the day and time that suits you. Enjoy 1 or 2 concerts, half hour with prices and popular programs in the Central 400 Auditorium in Reina Sofia Museum. Before or after concerts, you may take a drink, listen to DJ, and enjoying the view of the sunset from our terraces. Introductory language. It's welcoming people. It's lowering the threshold of risk. Here's an introductory format. At a grand scale, the San Francisco Opera once a year live streams an opera into the AT&T ballpark, and 35,000 people come. It's an introduction. It's free, but you must have a ticket, which means they capture your name. It's a database building activity. Social formats. My favorite social format is Glyndebourne. How many of you have been to Glyndebourne? Any? A couple? One hand. You basically, the only way to get a ticket is if someone dies and you inherit it. It's fantastic. It's a beautiful, beautiful opera house on a private estate about an hour and a half south of London by train. It's a very special experience. And you know what their format innovation is? A 90-minute intermission. And people go out on the lawn and picnic in their tuxedos and long dresses. And some people bring their butlers. It's amazing. It is fundamentally a format innovation. The problem is that people drink and then they sleep during the second half of the opera. But think about it. Why are intermissions 20 minutes? Like, why? It's so much of the social fulfillment from going out occurs at intermission. But by the time you go to the bathroom, the lights, there's not time to talk. Why couldn't intermissions be 25 minutes or even 30 minutes? Just to allow people more time to interact with people they came with and maybe even meet someone new. The Dallas Symphony has a format called remix. They're trying to blur the definition between nightlife and classical music. It's called remix. It's got a cute name that invokes electronic dance music, right? It's really not that different a program if you actually attend it. It's a regular concert, which brings up an interesting issue. If you're going to brand something, you have to deliver. We'll get into that in a little more. Kansas City, this is perhaps the last of the alcohol metaphors. Classics Uncorked. We've seen every possible alcohol metaphor in the orchestra field. Symphony with a twist. Uncorked. But what's going on here actually is people are addressing the social value. They're trying to create a fun, familiar social context for that. One of the great format innovations is San Francisco Ballet's Sensorium. I wish I could spend half an hour just talking about this. Basically, they took a Tuesday night at the ballet, right, which is their slowest night, and they reformatted it for a young audience. They started a little later. It's the same program everyone else gets, but they open the house an hour early. They have special educational, fun pop-up events in the lobby. They have an MC who happens to be an executive at Twitter. James Buckhouse is his name. And they market it through different channels. You cannot find out about Sensorium on the San Francisco Ballet website. There's a separate website. So here you see what the lobby looks like. They kind of soup it up with ambient lighting. You see the educational pop-ups. You can put on a tutu. You can try on a tiara. And of course, afterwards is the dance party in the basement with the DJ, and it's so funny. So funny, I've been to 3 of these shows. At the end of the show, people run to the basement because the fire marshal closes off the entrance to the basement because too many people are in the basement. And it's just comical how many people sort of want to go down and be part of that dance after party. It's a Tuesday night, and what are they doing? They're just reformatting a regular performance for a younger audience, and they've only done this 3 or 4 times, and the last time they've sold out 3,000 seats. And honestly, the level of sound in the auditorium is so high. There's so much excitement. People are talking. It takes like 5 minutes after the lights go down for the audience to get quiet. There's so much energy. It's truly amazing. Late night formats. The New World Symphony has the Seattle Symphony has a format they call Untitled. It's just a concert in the lobby, but it starts at 10 o'clock. And you can drink, you can get a drink, you can walk around, you can go up on that upper balcony and watch. Typically contemporary music. The New World Symphony has an amazing format called Pulse, late night at the New World Symphony. The evening starts at 10 p.m. and goes till 1 a.m., and the format is the orchestra playing in sets with a DJ playing electronic house music. And actually, they mix into each other. It's absolutely phenomenal. And you can see it's fundamentally a social format. People are drinking and people are socializing, yes, during the playing. And at times, the conductor turns around and actually asks everyone to be quiet 1 or 2 times during the night, and then they start up again. Talk. But they encourage cell phones. Everyone is posting to social media. Soundbox at the San Francisco is another amazing format. It is the quintessential alternative format. Everything is different about this format. The starting time, the length, there's not a regular seat. People are sitting on the floor or on ottomans or on bar stools. There's an open bar throughout. There's live digital remixing of video. Ultra contemporary music. A little more about that in a second. This is a photograph from Soundbox. The artists move. They perform on different platforms in the room. Okay. You've just looked at format alternatives. Social formats, late night formats, introductory formats. There are educational formats I didn't even show. All of you are probably doing educational formats, right? Now let's think about the marriage of branding at the product level. This is a big, to me, this is one of the most exciting developments in our field. We all have been thinking about branding at the institution level, right? And now what we're seeing is an evolution where arts organizations are branding at the product level. But it's difficult. There's a lot of trial and error going on. We're seeing a lot out actually in the entertainment marketplace. For example, Four Seasons Hotels has a branded experience where you fly on a private jet to Mexico to see how tequila is made. Airbnb is starting to sell experiences, not just accommodations, right? And what's really going on here, I want you to think about experiences when you see this video.
Scent has huge emotional power. It can actually change the way we feel. But scent is also invisible. As the world's largest maker of home fragrances, we wanted to make the invisible power of scent visible for all to see. Introducing the Museum of Feelings, an immersive interactive experience with specially curated Glade fragrances in the heart of New York City. We turned everyday emotions into art. Our algorithm also fed in real-time data from weather conditions, traffic volumes, and social media sentiment. Scent and light-driven exhibits provoke different emotional responses. Those responses instantly became part of the beautiful data in our displays. The invisible emotional power of scent became an extraordinary visual journey. A massive, ever-changing kaleidoscope, individualized halos of light, calming scented clouds, and a living selfie that used biometrics to color code the user's changing mood. The intelligent exterior used our algorithm to interpret the feelings of Manhattan like a giant mood ring. Small pops of light even indicated positive mentions of the museum online. Millions shared their experiences on social media. The Museum of Feelings earned nearly 1 billion media impressions from all over the world. Thousands of people waited over 4 hours in long lines to enter the museum. Unheard of for a branded experience. The Museum of Feelings made the invisible power of scent visible and beautiful. More importantly, we gave the world a whole new way to look at Glade.
I love that. You can find that on YouTube. Just search for Museum of Feelings. Like, okay, folks, this is air freshener. This is what people spray in the bathroom when they want to cover up their doo-doo. All right, we have transformative experiences. And this is what is happening in the commercial sector with ordinary products, right? We have to understand our programs as branded experiences. People lined up for 4 hours to go through the Glade Museum of Feelings. Just ask yourself, why? Why? We live in a culture of brands. My hypothesis is that young people are very facile with brands. They are quick to affiliate with brands because it's a simple way of defining who they are. This came, I think, out of the club world, where we had branded club nights, and this generation that is going to be buying tickets to your performances and exhibitions grew up going to branded club nights. Pacha is a great example. It's a brand. It started in Ibiza, now it's a worldwide brand. In the US, we have Sirius XM radio, satellite radio, 300 branded channels of audio. Of course, my favorite is Studio 54 channel. It's a child of the disco era. I listen to it all the time. But, it's like they're brands. It's so easy. You can tell immediately if this is for you or not. And of course, a brand is nothing but a way of simplifying complexity, right? And what's happening here is arts organizations are beginning to understand their programs as a portfolio of branded experiences. Pulse. They didn't even start. They didn't even set out. They didn't even know they had a brand. They just created a name for it, and the public made it a brand. I'm going to Pulse. What's the program? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I'm going to Pulse. Soundbox. This is beautiful branding work. Soundbox sells out before the program is announced because people are buying a branded experience. They're not buying Stravinsky, Stockhausen, John Adams. They're buying a branded experience. I go and I sit down next to people and I say, "How did you hear about this?" They said, "Oh, I saw Soundbox spray painted on the sidewalk." And they have no idea. They're not even classical music fans, and they're at Soundbox, listening to ultra-contemporary chamber music. Sonic Evolution is a fun brand the Seattle Symphony has. New York Philharmonic has a program called Off the Grid. Now, some of these are just clever names. They're not really brands. And just because a designer designs a logo doesn't make it a brand. And I think we have to think hard about really when we should brand a program, a product, and when we should not brand it. When we should counter-brand it and when it's not. So I'll go back just a second, so make a point about Soundbox. This is a counter-brand. Right? There's a micro website for Soundbox. It does not even say this is a program of the San Francisco Symphony. Okay? They are intentionally branding this apart from their institutional brand so as to attract people who don't normally come. Right? But you have to be very careful doing that because you're actually creating a product that is disassociated with your institution. But it's very effective in this case. It's what they intended to do. And of course, they've raised so much money from philanthropic foundations to support this program. It's really amazing. Counter-branding. There's a wonderful, they tripped over it, Scratch Night. It started in the UK. It's a night where artists come, they perform work in development, and audience members give feedback. It's Monday nights, once a month, Scratch Night. People remember Scratch Night. Oh, I love Scratch Night. They don't remember the artists. Doesn't matter so much because they buy into the idea of being part of the creative process. There's so many, yeah, they sort of designed a logo for it. There's so many great brands. Liquid music from the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra is so evocative. Off Center is a program of the Denver Theater Center. Renegade is a series of adventurous performing arts presentations. Pivot, San Francisco Performances, is a series of adventurous artists performed in venues off-site. Music Unwound was almost a brand, but the Pacific Symphony never quite crossed the bridge. All right, so these are all US examples. I close by just provoking you to think, what is happening here? When would you brand a product line to appeal to a younger audience? What you've seen here is the marriage of branding and format innovations. And what's so exciting to me is that this is the integration of marketing and artistic planning at a very, very high level. Soundbox without the brand would be nothing. When would you counter-brand and how different, be careful what you wish for, you create a brand. Museums have art. Art appreciates their assets. Museums have assets. In the performing arts, we don't have assets. They're gone when the curtain goes down. But we can have branded formats. And branded formats are an asset that you can exploit financially and artistically. Thank you so much.